Welcome back. Time now to go on the clock. Brought to you by Instaprint Plus, local printing that is insanely fast. Order today, pick up tomorrow, and say hello to the three wise men for this holiday week. As Rob Domofsky out tonight, so we have Jason Wilde, President, Chairman, CEO of Jason Wilde Inc. Bill Huber, of course, writes for SI's Packers page, and our sports director, Dave Schrader. So, listen, is this the point of no return? Jordan Love gets injured, more injuries. They have down to one tight end last night. Have we finally reached the breaking point between the injuries and the ineffectiveness? Like, I was trying to put it politely at the way they blew that game last night.
No, I don't think we have.
Okay.
Now, again, having both of your quarterbacks who are going to be on the injury report, and we don't know who's going to be practicing later this week, that's less than ideal, I will grant you. But look, the Ravens, there's so many teams that aren't who we thought they were this season, and the Ravens are one of them. And now the Vikings are probably going to have to turn to Max Bosmer. Look, there is still plenty of opportunity here. Is it the breaking point for being a Super Bowl team? I personally believe yes.
I think we were there last week on that one, at least by the consensus here on the panel. Bill?
Yeah, I'm Captain Negativity. You know that. But I would say, though, with all those injuries you just mentioned, Chris, they still almost beat the Bears.
Right.
So why? So no, it's not the breaking point, because the Bears are clearly one of the best teams in the league. They've played like a down the stretch. In Green Bay, with, as someone mentioned backstage, with one hand tied behind their back, almost beat them, Dave.
I'll preface this by saying I thought the Super Bowl chances were out when Tucker Kraft went down. I think any given week this team can beat anyone. They can play with Denver. They can play with Chicago. Maybe they can play with the Rams or the Seahawks. But I don't think, with the way that they're not going to get premium seating, I don't think they can beat four good teams in a row to make the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. I just don't think that's possible. I think in any given week, they can scheme it up, they can win, but the ask of a Super Bowl, which is all that matters around here, is just too much to ask.
What is, Bill always says they call it Title Town, not Almost Town.
Yeah,
right?
it's not Wild Cardville, which is what they're looking at again.
The 7 seed's been kind to Matt
seed
LaFleur.
city.
If it were 6 seed playoff tournament the last few years,
Then,
Yeah.
All right.
Different head coach.
Listen, as you all said, they were right there. They could have won the game. If they just do what they had done most of the season in the red zone, they do win that game. Bill, they go 0 for 5 yesterday. They were 1 for 4 in Denver. What's happened here? How have the wheels gone off? I get it. Jordan Love wasn't there after the first one. But still, what's gone wrong?
It's probably a little of everything, right? It's probably, some coaching and bad execution. Josh Jacobs is the king of red zone touchdowns, and he fumbles. They throw a backward pass to Emmanuel Wilson, which has a chance to be successful, and he fumbles the ball out of bounds. I went back because I couldn't find like a simple way to go through it. I went through the NFL stats. I went through year by year by year. There hasn't been an 0 for 5 game by the Packers in at least 20 years.
Wow.
when they haven't been really bad in the red zone, they've been so good, like best in the league good if you take out the 0 for 5. The Panthers game was terrible. The Denver game was terrible. It just has to come down to execution, right? And when Jordan Love's out, that makes that mountain so much harder to climb.
Yeah, if not for that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln, right? I mean, they've had those too many of those games. And, you know, what I think is remarkable is I think there's 10 games this season where a team hasn't punted.
Right.
And the Packers not only own 2 of them, but they lost both of them.
Right.
That is wild.
Also, goal-to-goal situations, this was really weird. They had 18 straight where they'd converted a touchdown, 21 out of 22 on the year. They go 0 for 3 last night. And with even with Malik Willis in the game, mobile, read option.
Killer,
that
was
just
a huge mistake. Yeah.
At one point, Jeff Hafley, I think I put this out on the tweeter that his resume was looking really good, if it wasn't already, but he was starting to make it look even better for a head coaching job. Can he do enough, Dave, with what he still has to keep them in it into the playoffs and maybe give them a chance?
I think so, absolutely. They gave up 400 yards last night, but only 240 of those yards came before the final 5 minutes in overtime. Those final 3 drives were killers. Momentum's a real thing. It swung, and the miscues were also real things. I thought the defense played so admirably the whole game. After the Josh Jacobs fumble, they allow 1 first down, then they get the immediate stop. They played their butts off until it mattered. We've seen that some other times, like Seattle. Who didn't have Seattle PTSD going through your head last night?
Yeah, look.
I did.
Right, and a similar number of things happened. A little bit shy of that. The stakes not quite as high. Look, I thought they played really well defensively until they didn't, obviously. To me, the biggest issue is the bust on 4th and 4 that gives them the game-tying touchdown. Like, that's one of those moments. I don't know if that's like, Morgan Burnett laying down on the interception. I don't know which one it correlates to, but it was bad.
It kind of goes back to the red zone conversation. Great teams, they don't do that.
Right.
They don't. Great teams don't go for 5. Great teams don't bust on the most important play of the game. It's what mediocre one-and-done teams do. I think Hafley can probably keep it together, but I know we're going to talk about cornerbacks here later, but if you don't have a pass rush and you have questionable cornerbacks, that seems to be an issue.
Well, that play, he dialed up great pressure.
Brent
Cox was right in Caleb
Flat
Williams'
three to
face.
quote Dom Capers.
Right.
Dom Capers.
Yeah. So here, let's talk about the corners, because last week I brought it up, and then the Micah Parsons injury kind of turned it out. But the question was going to be, are they good enough to take them where they wanted to go, which was to win a Super Bowl? I looked this up. Since Eric Stokes was drafted in the first round of 2021, this is what they've done in the draft. In 22, they drafted multiple wide receivers. They didn't take a corner. In 23, they drafted multiple tight ends. They took 1 corner. In 24, they took multiple safeties. They drafted 1 corner. And this past year, they drafted multiple wide receivers. They took 1 corner. All 3 of those corners came in the 7th round. So here's my question. Does Goody need to go volume to address this problem to make it? I realize they don't have a first-round pick, but does he need to start throwing some volume at this position?
Yeah, Antoine Edwards, Fred Vinson, Mike McKenzie. If you're old enough to get that reference, you remember the 1999 NFL draft, because that's what Ron Wolf did. Look,
and the third guy drafted turned out to be the best player by far.
And Fred Vinson got him Amon Green, so it worked out there. I would say this. That is a position that they have been derelict in their duty of replenishing, right? And look, they missed on Eric Stokes until he went to the Raiders. Then he suddenly figured out how to play or whatever it was. But look, Keyshawn Nixon is your number 1 corner. Matt LaFleur would not explain what happened on the bus today because it was schematic. Sure. I would say throw away that scheme because it didn't go very well.
Yeah, and they spent money on Nate Hobbs, who
was the other part of that.
Which was like the most bizarro signing ever. Here's a guy who was kind of a part-time star with the Raiders. He had some injury issues, never had great productivity, and they throw the guy $48 million. I realize it's some phony baloney money. I kind of like to see Van Williams pick in their 3rd round at the time because he's a unique player who could do some things. But, man, don't you needed a cornerback.
Yeah,
and Hobbs, we looked at his highlights when he was signed. Every single INT in his career is off a tip by a receiver or one of his fellow defenders. He's not a ball hawk at all. When you look at the corners, I think the game plan was really smart with Luther Burden out, with Rome Odunze out. They did a really good job of putting those guys in a good position last night. But the bust, I think that's just poetic justice, because there was a bust on Nixon's INT against the Bears 2 weeks ago by someone else. Evan Williams admitted to as much. And Nixon saved the day. No one was there to save the day when Nixon made his mistake with an all-out blitz.
And then he gets beat on the game-winning touchdown, but albeit gets beat by a great throw by Caleb Williams. All right, let's go.
Just quick to tie those 2 things together. You've got the Bears receivers being injured.
Right.
So what does Green Bay's defense mean? They played well, but against a bunch of backups. So what does that mean going forward when you play good quarterbacks?
Good point.
Well, we'll find out, because I'm not sure that they have that coming up at least in the next 2 weeks.
It means change the game plan every week to suit
Yeah.
what you need against your opponent, and you better hope it works every time. It's going to be different every time.
All right, let's go. What I heard, Jason?
I asked Matt LaFleur, I said, I understand the NFL doesn't work this way, but your 3 special teams plays away from being 12-2. And he delivered as full of a vote of confidence for Rich Bisaccia, which I wondered if there were people that thought maybe he was going to be out of a job like the Rams did earlier in the day. But Matt LaFleur very clear on Rich Bisaccia's job status.
Yeah, well, he didn't fumble the onside kick away.
He did not. No, he did not.
Not his fault.
Yeah, I asked LaFleur today. They have the crushing loss against Denver and a crushing loss last night against Chicago. Can they pull it together? And he said, yeah, he believes in his guys and he likes to bond. We'll see if that's just coach happy-go-lucky nonsense.
I was really interested to hear what he'd say. What's worse, just to be out physicaled, out executed, and dominated, or to give a game away? I would think it would be giving the game away would drive you more bonkers as a coach. He said, they all suck. And he had like a minute and a half answer. I aired it in full at 5:30.
Yeah, and then he came back and said it again at the end.
He said
like
suck
a nice
a few
little
times.
Yep, right at the beginning, right
I
at the
think
end.
he's right.
All right, let's go to ad libs. We'll go Jason, Bill, and Dave right on down the line. Jordan Morgan playing at right tackle last night. The first sack of the game came against him on the very last play of regulation, and that's the one Malik Willis hurt his shoulder on. But Jordan Morgan was blank at right tackle.
Like everybody else last night, he was good enough until he wasn't.
Fair.
Yeah, I was wondering if he was actually looking for help on that, for what it's worth.
He was all right. He was
Because
all
he
right.
got knocked on his backside.
And he was finally
on that
playing
play.
tackle, not guard or something
Yeah.
else.
All right, this kind of amazed me last night, given the conditions, and you were all there, but both kickers, they each made all 3 of their field goals, and they each made their extra point. They went 8 for 8. Their perfect night last night was blank.
Against the odds and against the wind.
I was blown away.
Oh, nice.
Just simply amazing. I thought for sure that we were going to have some wild theatrics, but it's also maybe affecting strategy when you're in overtime at the 36 or whatever yard.
All right, Cairo Santos can hit a really nice draw. That's what I know. It was like he's aiming outside the post and it blew in. We brought this up, Seattle 2.0. Romeo Dobbs equals Brandon Bostic, true or false?
No, because Romeo Dobbs was supposed to field that ball. Obviously, Brandon Bostic was not.
Exactly.
Don't put that evil on my name, Ricky Bobby.
Okay. We said both quarterbacks are injured. Don't know what's going to happen at practice this week. So I ask you, blank will take the most QB reps at practice this week.
Jaden Reed.
I'll go Malik Willis.
I was
really
going to
good,
go
though.
Jade Reed because the
Nobody's going to
emergency
practice squad, guys?
quarterbacks.
Clayton Tune is probably the
Yeah,
right answer.
Matt LaFleur announced the emergency quarterbacks are Jaden Reed and Josh Jacobs, so I'll go Josh Jacobs, but he's hurt too.
All right. 2 games to go. The Packers will finish with blank record.
11-5-1. They're winning their 2 last
Okay.
games.
10-6-1.
10-6-1.
All right, and as we kind of alluded to earlier, the most likely scenario if they're a wild card team is they're the 7th seed, with the Bears being the 2 seed if they win the North because they have a 1-game lead on the Eagles and the tiebreaker in hand for that number 2 seed. So likely at this point would be a playoff game in Chicago. I would be blank about a playoff game in
I'm
Chicago.
going to answer this the way Bill got it answered last night and someone else got it answered today. I'm not looking anywhere past Baltimore.
All right, Bill Belichick, on to Baltimore.
I'd have road rage.
The traffic was terrible.
It's awful.
I think the team would salivate at that
Yes,
opportunity.
absolutely.
I
I
agree
was
with
going to
that.
say not be concerned. All right, gentlemen, thanks so much. We'll do this again next Sunday after the Saturday night game with the Ravens, which we will look at when we come back.